All right, so we're back in here, Sharon, and Tim Mertzloff from Gordon Jones has joined us, just so you know, because I think him and John will be speaking during our first presentation.
Okay, and with that, we have a presentation on our preliminary Smart Schools investment plan. So we will turn it over to them.
Thank you.
Okay. It's got to be green.
Okay. I'll open things up with the Smart Schools preliminary plan. Again, preliminary is the key word here. This is a project we've started. It's part of the big capital project that we're doing. It's kind of a plan within a project within a project. We started discussions on how to use this Smart Schools money over probably a year ago and planned for this when the capital project came through, that we would integrate the Smart Schools project with that big project. So the plan you have in front of you, there's an agenda there about what topics we're going to touch on.
And real quick, just to add to what John said, when he uses the word preliminary, that's for the hearing. We've already had the vote, we already know where we're going, but as part of the Smart Schools Bond Act, we have to speak more about it, even though we've completely informed the public and everything over multiple meetings before the capital project. This is just something because of being this bond from the state that we have to have these hearings.
Yes, and later in this presentation, you'll see the timeline of things that we have to do to be compliant with the Smart Schools Bond Act to make sure we get our money. So there's the agenda we have. You can go to the next one, Matt. Again, we assembled a project planning team. This work goes back over a year probably. Looked at the different safety items we have in our buildings, public, door security systems that we installed, fire alarm systems. We've always been looking to replace those PA systems and clocks that are, all of our buildings have systems that are well over probably 25 years. So we knew that was the next piece that we had to take care of. We evaluated wants and needs. We had principals involved and looked at the various options that are out there. And we'll continue to do that going forward. And then, of course, this is a project that's integrated with the big capital project. There is no tax impact as a result of the Smart Schools project. So again, look at these different elements with the project. You can skip to the next one. Tim, you want to go into more about the scope of the project?
Yes, so what we did is we worked with the ME Engineering and the district, and we understood exactly what that each building was going to be be part of this. The blue light security connectivity was going to be district-wide. So you can see each of the buildings there that are represented. The only building that isn't technically touched is the bus garage, but at this point, all the school buildings will be touched. If you want to switch to the next slide. This is an example of a high school. So we went in depth even before the actual process of putting engineering drawings together. We wanted to understand exactly where all the components would be so that we could get a more accurate estimate. That's part of the process of the SSIP, is to understand exactly what components and how many components there are going to be to give a proper estimate. If you want to go to the next slide. So this is kind of a zoomed in view of one of the wings. You can see the green identified areas. Those are going to be the LCD display screens that John's going to talk a little bit more about. You can see that there's one in each classroom out in the corridors. And also we all have the blue light, we'll call it the blue pull stations. Those are located at primary spots in the hallways, specifically at similar locations that you have currently for fire alarm pull stations. Those little red boxes that you see on the wall that nobody's supposed to touch. Well, these blue light pull stations are going to be there as well. One of the things that you'll notice when John brings up that slide is that there's actually going to be a plexiglass type cover over the top of the pull station that would prevent folks from just kind of playing with it. It would give us a local alarm once that plexiglass cover is pulled, and then the alarm itself could be pulled as well. Other things that are on this list include horns and strobes. The horns would be located in various locations in the hallway and corridors. as well as toilet rooms, bathrooms, larger spaces such as gymnasiums, places where a small LCD screen wouldn't work in those type of spaces. So that's the kind of it on this slide. You want to go to the next one? And John.
Yes, and the common thing that we looked at and the common thing that people want from this system is to have an LCD screen in every room. There are systems out there that have a scrolling text, which is kind of dated by now. So we want that LCD screen because it's got so many options down the road for us. And we did hear feedback from primary schools saying we want to have an old style analog clock because we want to have kids know the time that way. And the LCD screen does, have that option to have an analog clock display on it, so we don't lose that. Again, we looked at all the different options that were out there. There's a lot of companies offering things now. We've had a few of those in to kind of do preliminary talks to. But again, we think the LCD screen is something we definitely want in each room. And during lockdowns and things, we could put displays on there. We can put messages to the room without announcing over the loudspeaker. So there's a lot of options there that help with the safety of the school. Next slide. So this is some of the equipment that we're considering. It may not look exactly like this, but these are the things the kind of items that we want in place with the new system. Next one is about the budget. Smart Schools Bond Act was initiated in 2014. I think in 2015 maybe, or 2016, the Iroquois started their first Smart Schools project, which was full connectivity project, which was full wiring of the district for internet access. And that included, I think, 5 drops per classroom. It was a huge wiring project, and we have that done. I think originally back then, we anticipated the entire allocation of $1.3 million would be used to do that wiring project. Luckily, the bids came in much lower than we anticipated. Now we have $533,000 left, and we can allocate that to be used for the PA and clock system. Next one, Matt. And that wiring project really set us up to be able to do this PA and clock system because we're going to use those wires to integrate that system together, and it's going to save us a lot of time because those wires are already in places we want them to be to make this happen. You can see on the next list that we have a list of the equipment that we're buying, and most of this project is going to be buying the actual equipment. The capital project, the large capital project, will be the part where the installation takes place. So that's the majority of the money being spent on actual equipment for the project. Next slide has the timeline that Doug spoke about. There's very specific hurdles that we have to kind of jump to make sure we fall in line in the right way and we present the project in the correct way. At this meeting, we're doing the preliminary plan in the upper right corner. We have to post this plan on our website for 30 days and wait for feedback, if there's any feedback from the general public. At the December board meeting, we'll do a public hearing on the project. At that time, people can voice concerns or questions. We can refine the project if needed, and then at the January meeting, we will propose and have the board approve the final plan. And once that final plan is approved, then we put it to the Smart Schools Bond Committee at New York State, and we wait for them to answer back if they accept it or not. We don't know the timeline on that. They meet 2 or 3 times a year, and they don't really tell you when they're going to meet. It's kind of a surprise a lot of times. So then we'll be waiting for them to assemble at that time. And then Tim will work through the details with the principals and all the involved departments to make sure that we come up with the system that we want. Anything else you want to add, Tim, on timeline events?
On the next slide, if you want to go to the next slide, it shows right there in the upper left, it shows the word hearings. That's where we're at, the phase that we're at in the timeline now, with the intent that we would be around the first weeks of January, we would be submitting the SSIP if everything gets approved by the board and the public. And then what we would do is we would go ahead and submit the SSIP, which is the finance plan, to secure finances for this phase of the project. Simultaneously with that, submitting of the SSIP, we would start the design, what we call the design part, which is putting the construction documents, drawings, and specifications together. And then once the SSIP, the finance part, is approved by the state, we would then go ahead and immediately submit the drawings and specifications to the state education department for the permit purposes, and that has to be done in order to get the project through the state. Once the state education department approves the project, drawings and specifications, we then have options. One would be to go through a state contract, which would allow us not to have to do any bidding because the bids are already done through a state contract form, or we would go out to bid itself and bid the work. But right now we're still working through those details. And then once that decision or bid has been completed, obviously we would start what we call the construction phase, and that would run simultaneously with the capital, the 2020 capital project. That construction finishing at about the same time in the end of 2023 as the capital project would.
So again, at this board meeting later in the meeting, item 8.9 will be requesting that the board approve this preliminary plan. We'll do the hearing in December and then the final plan approval in January. Any questions at this time?
Yeah, and just to make sure, this is the part that dovetails into what the capital project approved, because this is not enough of this system to do 100% of the district. But in those plans, and when we talked about it to the public before, this is the piece that's coming from the Smart Schools Bond Act that was passed 5-6 years ago. I mean, don't quote me on the date, but quite back then. And this is just documenting, doing everything what's already been presented to the public that they voted on, and then they passed overwhelmingly.
That's correct.
And based on the pricing and that we get on these components that we're buying, we will buy as many components as we can with this allotment money to hopefully get most of the district complete with equipment.
Oh, that's good, and because hopefully then it'll free up some more money to do work within that capital project.
Any other comments or questions?
I just have a quick question. I think I know I should know the answer already, but what happens with power outages? With the screens and the whole system, is there, it just goes straight to generator? It just seems so.
Last project, we updated all our generators, and these are all on PPP, which is power over Ethernet, and that is all on the backup power, so they're all taken care of through that method.
Okay.
Did I do okay,
Thank
Tim?
you.
That's correct.
Tim gave me the thumbs up. He trains a lot with me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now we're at item 5, recognition of guests. Are there any guests? No guests.
No.
Okay. Moving on to our consensus agenda, 6.1A. Are there any requests to withdraw specific items from the agenda? Are there any requests to add specific items to the agenda? Okay, then a request to approve the consensus agenda items 6.2 through 6.4.9.9.
So moved.
Dave.
Second, Louise.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. No opposed. Moving on to our superintendent's report.
All right, thank you. I know it says COVID and then surveys, but I'm going to do it backwards just to spice things up. I'm going to do surveys then COVID. I just think it might flow a little better. And so when we're talking about the surveys, we did 2 of them. The first one I'm going to talk about is the COVID reopening survey results. I don't want to say this is old because we just did it a couple weeks ago, and we just were talking about it, reviewing it. The board has a complete copy of all the data, complete copy of every single comment that came back, and knowing the board, they've read through it because they actually had just heard them talking about it a little bit ago at a roundtable we had with staff. So in it, kind of my perspectives is we had a great sample size. Mary Jo put this out. She did a great job, got it out to the people, well organized with the questions. And you can see when people came back, even students, 400 students, and that was only middle and high school, and that's great. I think they were the greatest group on it. Of course, they were the largest, but great job with that. So as we look at it, the page I'm going to go to, it says in-person instruction, safety, SEL, and academics. Really, this section was pretty consistent with high numbers, with the exception of teachers. And why I want to point that out is their social emotional needs being met is around 60%, a little under that. And we really must recognize that this time of everything that's changing, I mean, just the announcements today, instruction is changing again, so how they're doing their models, the different changes in technology, this I think is going to be a challenge that we're going to keep looking at, addressing, trying to support, give them support with each other, and just keep trying to find new avenues, because it's a tough time. It really is a tough time in instruction, and I know, you know, we've been in this since September. It's almost the middle of November, so you're talking 10 weeks. The marking period just ended, and you can see people getting burned and fatigued and all burned out and already fatigued. So it's tough, and we're going to do some things to try to help with that and also make it better for the students at the same time.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How are students taking tests if everything's online and pretty much they're just listening and giving feedback during the class? How are they able to complete tests?
Well, and I think that's one of the things that will come back to the SEL for teachers with that, bring it right back around, because having to create new tests, come up with different formats of how they're doing it to make it appropriate. I mean, right now we've been lucky, we've done very well with the hybrid system, so maybe some teachers are doing part of the test on A and another version of it on B, so now they're doing twice the work. Maybe they did one on the same day, where it was virtual and at home, and they could watch what the children are doing. Maybe a third one they did is where it was always at home, where they would do it asynchronously. But again, you have to take into account now when they're at home and on their own, they have other resources they might be using, even if you ask them not to. So that's one of the things that's really challenging for teachers, of the redesign of everything, which is causing so much more work and energy that goes into every little piece they're doing. I could go through each percentage in there, but I think that covers that section pretty good. In-person instruction. So when I look at in-person instruction, and I look at this, the support of masks and shields. That's a big question about it. And I look at it, supports wearing masks. There's a high percentage of people that, you know, really supports that. But you see support using shields. It's about 50% there. Teachers are the highest, parents are the highest in using it. Students, I would imagine, would be a little lower, and that makes sense because they're carrying them around all the time. So it's a little more inconvenient, but we really do need to put safety first. And I think with the number of cases we've had here, I think it's maxed out at 9, actually COVID cases here at Iroquois. And you look at the rest of around Iroquois in our community, we've really provided a safe environment, and I think this is one of the big reasons why. When we started this, rates weren't going well, so maybe we're thinking, is there something we could do to change it one way? And I think actually now we'd be thinking we should change it the other way. So slow movement on safety is very, very important, and we're doing well. Potential changes to mask and shield use. Again, this was before the big uptick that happened right after Halloween. And I'll put a shameless plug in there with Thanksgiving. Also be careful, because you saw an uptick after Halloween, so let's be smart for around Thanksgiving. And you see, keep the mask and shield use the same. Really, teachers and parents were very high on that. And then you say, consider decreasing the use of masks or shields. And you could see, again there, people really disagreed with that. They want to keep things in place. We could have broken out, do you want to decrease shields, do you want to decrease masks? We didn't do that in this one. But it was just some interesting numbers to look at. But with what's going on now, I don't see changing any of our safety protocol at all.
And Doug,
Yes.
just to be clear, we don't have a whole lot of leeway on that, right? I mean,
No, we really,
I'm not even sure why that question was asked, but
well, in some situations where you're having the 6 feet and you're keeping the masks on, you could think of, well, we have two things in place because you have more than 6 feet. But really, when you read the guidance from New York State, it says mask/shields or social distancing. So therefore, they're together. They really need to look together. But it was a concern that people were having that was brought, so we thought we'd get the feedback from the community. And teachers too.
Masks work,
Yes, masks
And that's-
definitely work.
clearly played out in the school, and clearly being reflected in the high numbers outside of the school right now.
And I think
So-
that's a great segue. I didn't think of saying this, and I apologize to the students, but really I probably should have started with all this with thanking them for what they are doing, because without their willingness to really wear the mask and not try to cheat and slide them down and carry the shields, we would not be at this spot. So really, all the students at Iroquois, looking directly at you, a big thank you, appreciation, goes right to you, because you are the ones that did this. It's absolutely something you could control. It's something you took a hold of, and it's something you did. So thank you for being that way. Hybrid model with 50%, should it continue? Should it change? And a majority agreed we should continue with that hybrid model. If there's anything in there, you would say some more, people like to have their students in more, but then as you read through the comments, they only want them if it's safe. And right now, we're showing the model we're using with the hybrid is really the safe model that's out there for all the distancing. In-person online instruction, looking at the first one, putting children first, and students were at 83, teachers at 84, parents at 94, and so this really seems we're looking to put the students' needs first. And online, is that putting student needs first? Students were at 83, parents at 81, teachers really feel there should be more for students because they were at 68, 70%. So I know they're a big messenger in putting student needs first because they're the ones directly dealing with them. And I also know that the stress that they're under and the work they're doing is very hard with the different formats, and they're constantly working at that. So a big thank you goes to them for the work they're doing.
Doug, quick
Yes.
question, because I think the comments really were telling in that section. Do you think the discrepancy there is due to the teacher's knowledge of the format in which they're teaching, and so they feel that that format is not doing what's best for students? Where if I'm a parent at home and I see my child attending class every day, whether virtually or in person, it looks like they're getting a quality education, so we're doing what's best for students. Yet the teachers, who are the ones responsible for educating our students in the format that we reopened with, are viewing that question through the lens of, you know what? Yes, I'm teaching every single day, whether your student is virtually or in person in this hybrid model, but this format is not the best format for teaching students.
I think that's a very in tune statement. And I was actually looking through as you were talking, because there's a couple other ones that I think that comment alone would apply to additionally. Because, the first time you're in algebra, you don't know what you're missing. But by the time you take it 3 or 4 times, not that you should, but you start to learn what you should have picked up. And with teachers who are teaching it for the years, they see the gaps that are going to be occurring later in the years. And that's a very frustrating piece, knowing that this is happening and it's really out of your control because of just what's going on in the world right now, because we're not able to have the students in, because I think it's also clear in all the comments, having students in 100% of the time is really probably the best format we could have for that direct contact, direct instruction. Ability to get help, that kind of parallels it right there, too, with what you were saying there, ability to get help. And I forget if this one's on technology, but I wrote next to it, we're getting a TOSA. So one of the things you heard in the comments, too, is ability to get help. So for teachers to get help on technology, to get a TOSA, Dr. Dudek's been working on that, getting that in place. We have the people identified. I believe they're actually in this board meeting to move to that position. I think that's going to be a big help, because in hearing the teachers, that's one of the things they're want more ability to have growth and tutoring in, because it's something that's new and it's something that they need support in. not by any problem of what they've done, just by nature of where we've had to shift to so quickly.
Are those TOSAs working K to 12?
Say that again, please?
Are the TOSAs working K to 12?
Yes, we're going to have one TOSA. We originally thought they should be a K4 and a 512 TOSA. And then in talking to them, the TOSA said, well, no, we think it would work better if the one did K5 and the other one did 612. So that's how they're going to be designed.
Okay.
Let's see.
So, and just a little bit about what we were talking about earlier today too. I mean, the TOSAs are great, but they're two people. There are so many options for technology, for delivery, for moving curriculum to an online electronic format. There are so many electronic whiteboards just to explore. And, all of that, it's incredibly time consuming. As somebody who had to do that and get up to speed on my own while taking classes and also helping other teachers, it's so time consuming. And if teachers have the opportunity to work together in a professional environment, it could save a ton of time and energy and take a lot of that burden off of the teachers.
Absolutely, and that's where I did like it at the meeting we had with the roundtable with the staff, that the one individual said, I forget what she called it, but I equated to a forum where you could post questions and everyone could kind of collaborate and answer and build on it. I like that idea. And also what we're going to have, I was going to talk about a little later on, is we're going to take those Wednesdays and open up the afternoons at the 3 different levels where they will have more collaboration time. Also going remote, we'll have to figure out what we can do with hybrid when we come back, but with remote, all the times for the teachers at the secondary level that they were doing their duty, like a study hall or a lunch, something like that, that's now opened up another free period for them to work together, collaborate, and actually get other work done. That's a benefit of going remote. Going remote, I think, is 100%. There's negatives with it too. And then coming back to hybrid, that ability to be lost, but also we can monitor how things are going with the remote, with the Wednesdays, and then get the feedback of what can we do when we come back to try to make things better than we were in hybrid for the first 10 weeks.
Yeah, and it's just something to stick in the back of your mind is office hours, right? I mean, if students need some extra help, if there's a set time every week or Wednesday or whatever it is, that's helpful. I've seen that work fairly well.
Yeah, like even combine it with an office hours reteaching where a teacher could say, hey, you definitely have to be here, or it's an option for a student to go in. That way they can get both or have different periods. I'm sure those will be some of the models that the principals will be talking about with teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Not to interrupt your superintendent, but I have concern about hearing from the teachers and staff about those technology needs now. When we go remote, that is only going to increase. And so I just worry that those demands can be met, and how do we support our technology staff who are doing the best they can do to keep up with that demand? It's not anybody not trying, it's the quadruple, the work for that department.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely comes down to just manpower and time in the day, and that's where you kind of get caught between what we established and what we were running, and now all of a sudden you have to change. So, could we hire more? And that's why we're bringing these 2 TOSAs on. Is it the answer? No. Does it help? Yes, and that's where you have to keep looking at the different possibilities that we have.
But the TOSAs are really instructional technology, and the tech department is really hardware, software technology. So they're still going to be, it really won't relieve them, right?
The hardware technology, I don't think will be relieved at all. I think they're taxed right where they are with all the different computers. We are setting up another location for parents to drop off. Hopefully that'll help, but it really won't help with hardware itself and repairs. The TOSAs will help because we really had one main person that was supposed to be doing the training, and now we're actually adding 2 to that staff. So it's a big change. Is it enough? I don't think in this environment you could really add enough, but then if you have so many, how you pulling the teachers away, then creating the space for them to do it, because they're still teaching, and that's where those pressures come back on with teachers of always trying to develop and get ready for the classes that are coming, that happen, and that's where the Wednesdays I think are a great start to that, where they can get together and then have development, and even with the TOSAs, their hours are going to be flexible. So therefore, they can meet in the morning, meet afternoon, and work on around the teacher's schedule where they're open, not you have to work around the TOSA schedule. So that was purposely why they were 100%, and that was during the interview, making sure that they're comfortable with coming in early or staying late.
I like that you clarified that there is a big difference between hardware and software and connectivity issues and, electronic delivery of instruction. That those are 2 different issues that we're struggling with both.
Yep. Yes. All right. Feedback about people being able to get feedback. This was really just to, feedback from the teachers. And it really looks like students, whether it's online or in person, that's really, really doing quite well. So, thank you. And I know the teachers work very hard at giving feedback to everyone. This one I found interesting. I really enjoyed it. Is the amount of signed work in person versus online. And a majority of the people said it was appropriate. 30% consistently. Students, 30% thought it was a little bit too much. So they were at basically 70%. Very few thought it was too little. And the parents, when you look at that too, when you look at the online work, because we do hear, and in the comments you saw parents who do want more, but a majority either think it's, the too much and the too little kind of balance each other out. So I don't know if that means we're hitting the sweet spot or people are at just different paces, but it was nice to see that so you could reflect on that. Internet disruptions. So that does not include this past week. Thank you, Matt, for finding the solution to that, because I know this was a rough week for internet connection and disruptions. Found this one very interesting because students and parents averaged them together were around 78%. Teachers were at 41%. So what I'm thinking there is just some communication issues where students think, hey, we're getting everything we need, kind of like Gunnar was saying again, and teachers are going, no, you need to be here more, or we need to get more of this to you. And so there's just some more of meeting expectations that I think need to maybe be a little clearer to students so they know the expectations are a little higher. Internet has not caused a major interruption for me. This is the teacher experience. People that are neutral, agree, or strongly disagree was only 49.9%. So it's to say a 50-50 split. And that goes back to even that first one I just talked about where you have one group thinking, hey, we're all there all the time, and really you're not. Internet is something we have to work on. Computer reliability, you got some of the same numbers here. Now, teachers, ironically on this one, overwhelmingly 71% neutral, agree, or strongly disagree that their computer has been reliable, where they see the issue is thinking the teachers want more out of the student's computer, and the students think their computer at 78% and parents at 86% think their computers are working really pretty good. So I think, again, understanding the expectations of what should be happening from the computers. Teacher support. Let's see, students being able to receive technical support when needed. Students and parents think they're getting great technical support. The teachers, and this one could be a confusing, a poor question, are saying it's only at 63%. Well, the students are thinking they're getting it. So is this that the teachers feel they're not getting good support? I think this was more geared around to how they feel that students are getting technical support. Or is it they feel they're not getting, they should be getting better support as a for the students? Not sure. Teacher experience, teachers say they receive technical support when needed, and they're at 80%. They're saying that the the technology is really doing a good job there, but they do have other issues we read about in the comments. Use Microsoft products. So this is about students using Microsoft products. The students and parents feel they're doing a great job with it, but the teachers feel that the students need to do a little better with it. They're at 50%, and this is one of the things about having the teachers have the skills to say, here are the programs we're using within there. The TOSA could come in and help that, so they're able to show that to the students of what they should be using. But the teachers feel that they're about 81.7% that they're able to use the Microsoft product, so it seems the majority are very comfortable with the product. Almost done. Access to how-to videos. It seems only around 60%, we'll say 50% when you average them out, the three groups, the students, teachers, and parents, are using the how-to videos. So they're out there, and they're hopefully getting more people to use those. Might be helpful, but I also know I'd rather learn hands-on than watching a video, which gets back to in-person instruction and having the time to do that. Student engagement. Students struggle to attend online, and the students, when you look at here, let's see, students struggle to attend on time, and you see that they really think they're doing a good job. They're about 34%, think they're struggling. The rest think they're doing a pretty good job. Teachers are reverse of that, so they're thinking the students should be more on time. Again, we got to work on those expectations with the students, so they are following through on what's expected of them. They're lacking a little bit there, it looks like. Struggling with getting my students to attend engage. 73% of the students are saying that they're having trouble with that. And by all means, students who are engaging and looking on, you're doing a great job, but we know there are different people at different points, in the classrooms, and so those are the ones that we're talking about. So please encourage your friends to be with you and be part of the group that is meeting and attending. Student time online. Let's see, doesn't answer too much or too. This one, we failed on this one because it really doesn't answer too much or too little, so I apologize when I went over these. It says the amount of students online is just right, and it's kind of split on both sides, but we'll have to get more information on this one. As I went through, I questioned my question on that one. Teaching tools for online instruction. I have the tools necessary to teach online. Only 56% of the teachers said that they have them, and this is a tough shift with Ed Law 2D coming into play, getting the programs up and running, and I know we're going to be looking at that. In the last few slides, consistent change in attendance. They really want to stay in the model we're in. They're really not looking for a change. They like the hybrid model. It seems to be meeting needs right now. It's not the desires, though. I think there's a big difference between desires and needs, and we would really desire to have the students in. Driving to school. Only 2% plan to switch, whether they're driving or having the bus, so we've kind of hit a happy norm of where we're going to be there. And child care issues, I knew this was going to be a big one. And, yes, there's 46% that have child care issues, and, which relates to the 55% of not resolved. And that's, I think, is going to be tough in this environment, and with switching, going to Orange and having to switch to full remote. If we were to do a survey Monday, I think these numbers would increase with child care issues, and that's something we have to be concerned with. And then if we switch any models as we get better input, especially at the primary level, if we're looking to do something else, that's a good number to have, because if we switch and we remain with the same percentage of people having issues, we didn't go backwards anywhere in helping parents out, but we were able to help students and teachers out with the different models we're in. Students, for the surveys, I guess, and please, board members, I know you read all these. If you wish to throw any comments in, please do. School is not appealing. That's how I would summarize all the student comments. And when they say not appealing, it's this format. They want to be together with their friends. They want to come in and be able to socialize. They don't want to have to be in the hybrid model. They really don't like the remote. Some people said we should just go fairly remote, rather than doing what we're doing now. But I just think it's not appealing, and I think that's a great little summary. I copied that from one of the students, so if you're the one I copied from, thank you, because I think that really did well. Did anyone make any comments for the students other than that? This one is, this is the teacher one. I want to make sure I had the right one. And I just read the first one. I think we just need more training, more help. We are really, feeling burned out. We're doing the best we can. That's a great summary, that first one I read there, but it's the amount of how I'm summarizing the numerous pages that were here. The amount of work for hybrid is enormous. I think that's a great way to summarize a lot of that. The hybrid model is difficult, and the speed it started is causing a lot of stress, and there was no time to train for this huge shift in the delivery model, and we're going to be making another shift to 100% remote soon. They need more planning time. I think that's another fair analogy of a lot of consensus in there. Concern for student engagement. We saw that earlier when I was talking about the percentages. A lack of control of the situation was another great comment, and I wouldn't say a great comment. I think it was a fair characterization. I don't really like that comment, but it is very frustrating not to be controlling your destiny when you're trying to move students in the direction you want them to go to. Did anyone want to make any other comments with that one?
I do. I think this is a good time to just make sure that we, when we've read close to 50 pages of comments. Data and the numbers tell us one thing, the comments tell us another. And I think after reading these pages from parents and students and teachers, there are a lot of very supportive comments from our community members about knowing that everybody's working very hard. The kids' comments were exactly what you said, very much about they miss their friends, they miss their social activities, and there weren't a lot of negative comments about their teaching and learning. I think the people that were hard on themselves were the educators in our school district. And after having the round table with them today, I think it's important to say here and for the public to hear that when you have the number of people that are saying they need more help, they need more time to prepare the materials, I think we as a board, I'm personally going to say we need to listen to them. These are people that are working extraordinarily hard to learn the technology, to plan and collaborate together. And I think we need to support them in that. And we need to, this is not teachers saying, oh, we'd like to leave early, we'd like this, we'd like this. This is teachers saying, the words burnout concern me. The words that, we need to work together to help each other through these circumstances that we've never lived through. I said, this is like extreme teaching. And it is the delivery of the material, it's the technology of it, and it's the getting the kids' feedback back to you. I heard somebody call it teaching through a window. That's what it feels like sometimes. And I think that, I just want our community to hear from us after reading these surveys and listening to the teachers and support staff that this is, I personally I'm definitely in support of making sure that we can do everything we can to give the educators what they need, which is in turn good for our students. It's good for the education in the community in general. So I just want to say, I just really think we need to hear what's being said.
Also, I had one comment that it's really so difficult for a child like I have my own, and she's home all day by herself, and the only person she sees, because I'm gone at work and so is my husband, is that teacher, and how so important it is for positivity and smiles. It's so hard, and I think the teachers know this, but somehow we have to keep emphasizing the positivity and the smiles, because it's so hard for this person, a child, as well, of course, as a teacher, to keep that enthusiasm relaying to the child and that positivity. I don't know how we can keep relaying that, but it makes a whole bit of difference to that child who's just sitting in their room all day, and all they have is that teacher to smile. It's amazing the difference it makes.
Yeah, and when switching to unless there's someone else, I was just going to say, in switching to the remote, we're going to talk about some of the ways we were going. And we've been switching to some of these anyways, but this is a nice trial period for some of these. For the parent survey, I think they summarize a lot of what was just said. Teachers are doing a great job. It's a terrible situation. And then a lot of the other comments are split, where I want more, I want less. But I think a lot of them recognize that the teachers are doing really doing a good job. It's just a terrible situation. Before I go on to talk a little bit about the next survey about testing for COVID and then into that we're in the orange zone, were there anything anyone else wanted to say about the surveys?
I just had a few comments, Doug. First off, Mary Jo, I believe you're in the room.
Yes.
I wanted to say thank you for compiling the data and putting together the surveys. It was really helpful to be able to see where people are at. Because a lot of times when you get emails or phone calls or text messages from people, you hear certain sides, and it was nice to see everything put together in one place to analyze. That being said, I also want to thank everybody that took the time to fill out the surveys, and want everyone to know that your honest feedback in the surveys are critical to the operations on how we move forward. I know I get survey after survey after survey, whether it's from my employer or school or here on the school board, and you get survey fatigue after a while and start to think, is anyone actually listening or paying attention? Is it worth even filling this out? And this wasn't a small, short survey. This was a pretty lengthy survey for people to sit down and take the time to do. So please continue to take the time to do that, because it does help on how we move forward. The next thing that I want to say is, when we're looking at this data, it's important that we're in the right frame of mind, because unfortunately, with the recent events that have occurred in Western New York and being in a yellow zone and now an orange zone, and in just the past 2 weeks, this data is almost out to date for the direction that we are currently heading in which is fully remote, right? So we are at a moment now where we're resetting, everything's fully remote. I know, Doug, you're going to talk about that in a second, but during that remote time period is the perfect opportunity to use this data that was done during the hybrid model to really adapt, like Sharon was saying, really adapt and address these concerns that we've been hearing from our faculty and staff. They're valid concerns, and it's pretty consistent within the comments that they're sharing. And it's important that we listen to that, not only the board and the administration, but the community as well. And my last comment is really to the community. And I believe I said this at our last meeting in October. It's heartbreaking to see the emails that teachers will forward to you that are coming from members of our community. They're doing the best they can. I said it in October, and I'll say it again. Our teachers are our heroes right now. They're educating the students in an impossible situation, and they're really doing the best they can. But it is heartbreaking to read and hear about these horrific things that are being said to our teachers. And so I want to plead with the community to take a moment to breathe and pause before you hit that send button, and understand that just like on your screen, there's a human being on the other side that's working their hardest to do what's best for our students. And also, if you're one of those people that wrote positive comments on the surveys, it doesn't hurt to send your child's teacher just a quick thank you note. And whether if your child's teacher sends out a class-wide email, it doesn't hurt to just respond quickly, thank you for what you're doing. Because there's so many of you out there that that are thankful for what they're doing, and our teachers are just not hearing that side either from parents. So I make that final plea to our community to really think about their comments before they hit send, and the words that they're using. And I've said this before many times, words matter, whether we believe that or not in society right now is another story, but they matter and they affect people, and we got to keep that in mind.
I think that was very well said, and you know, it's a sad thing that there's a common thing out there. I think if you get one nice one, you know, that's in comparison to 10 negative ones, because it's so much easier to send the negative one. And I know our community is a great caring community, so maybe we could start a little movement tonight where people will take time and, you know, you have 5 teachers or 3, and one every day, email one of them. Great exercise while kids are at home, remote learning. Have the student write the email, and then you sign it with them, because it'll help them the skills of writing, communicating, and everything else. So maybe that's something that could be started.
It really, this is kind of, I don't know, but imagine if you had to go to work every day with a camera on you and have someone over your shoulder who has never done your job telling you all the stuff you're doing wrong. Like, right? I mean,
Yeah.
when you're on camera all day and you're being scrutinized by people, and that's a hard situation. I also just wanted to make a quick comment about hybrid. We are throwing that term around as it applies to what we decided to do as a district, where teachers were teaching in person and at the same time online. Hybrid doesn't, can be in person one day and synchronous the next day, or hybrid can be in person one day and asynchronous the other 2 days. So we should really kind of break that down a little bit, I think, because hybrid can be a lot of different things, and it can be very effective. It can also be overwhelming to try and do 2 things or 3 things at once. So just my thoughts.
Yeah,
I do think that is something that we was said in the summer, and I think a teacher said it the best, that like listening to your staff, a good leader listens and adjusts. And I do actually, I'm happy that based on the surveys, there's changes being made that are listening to that feedback. I just really hope that's what we continue to do, because, you couldn't even imagine what it was we all guessed what it was going to be like, but living it and then reflecting on it and living and reflecting is modeling that whole cycle of, teaching and learning, and we're all teaching and learning. So I hope we continue to do that, but I'm pleased that the administration is willing to adjust as we go, and hope we continue to.
Anyone else?
Yeah, sorry. I'm just going to say that that's true leadership, right? Because when you realize not one person never knows everything, right? You have to trust the people around you to offer feedback and to make suggestions, and then you take the best of those and make decisions and changes. So I appreciate that you're willing to do that, Doug, and it's true leadership.
Thank you. But really, I got to give it back to the teachers, the students, and the board, because being supportive in that is what allows that to happen. And I couldn't do it without John, Mary Jo, the administrators, KJ, Cindy too, for saying, come on, think about it. So appreciate everybody.
Yes, we really love Cindy.
Yeah, Cindy.
I just wanted to interject something, and I was wondering if we could make like a theme called Positivity and Smiles because I think that really helps people learn so much better when there's positivity and smiles. My mother always told me, it doesn't cost anything to smile and be nice, you know? So I'm somehow, I don't know if that could be a theme, positivity and smiles. I don't know why. It just really helps in learning and getting through to people and making them, I'm sure they're already doing it, but I don't know why I want to just emphasize that as if possible, if that could be a theme.
Yeah, I think a lot of people heard you say that, and I really got to compliment the teachers because in the beginning when we started, even I'm going to say recently because the last couple of weeks I've been taking care of COVID things, but up through October, in walking around, finding teachers when they were alone to have a conversation with them about how things were going, because in front of the students, they were positive, they were smiling, they were putting their best foot forward. So I think exactly what you said there, a big compliment should go out to our staff, because I really think they've been modeling that throughout it. I know there's, I'll call it SNL Live, that they're doing at the middle school that does that, that they're just trying to create a little fun. Whereas at high school is trying to get the clubs up and running where they're having the different activities. Granted, we're nearing orange now, so that's all changing. We'll have to reinvent it, but I think they've really, really been doing what you said. The testing survey, switching to the next survey, and this is testing for COVID, just to let people know. Parents, 59% said they were comfortable, 41 said that they were not comfortable. And I think this was a comfortable. Whether they're willing to do it or not is something different, because I think there are some that would be willing to do it, but they're not comfortable with it. But they know the value of education is so important. But I think this was a true idea of where they feel and that they want to do that. The staff, 80% said they were comfortable, 20% not. And you know, and I know actually I should say this for the parents too, but even staff members emailed us, and one staff member said, look, I wrote a note that I'm not comfortable with it. I will do it if if it's to keep kids in school, but here are the reasons why I'm not comfortable with it, but I will do it. And we received a few of those too. So that's why I want to say we have to be aware of that in those numbers. Irregardless of those testing survey numbers, because that would be yellow, we're in the orange zone. If we were to be open in the orange zone, we'd have to have 100%, we'd have to take 4 days off. No one can come to school, and test 100% of our students, and then test 25% weekly. That's a big undertaking. You'd have to do that if we were in the red zone too, if things were to get worse. And right now, we're working on getting our limited service licensing, and what that would allow us to do is do tests here. We're not ready to start it. Some other schools that have moved through hired outside agencies to come in and do it, and I was really looking to work with the Department of Health on it. And originally, I think it's 2 weeks ago now, they said that they could do it, but then with the huge increase in cases in Erie County, that they can't do that anymore. So we're going to be looking to get tests ordered, and then look to see what we can do to provide instruction for everyone.
Doug, really quick. I'm going to be blunt here for a second, and I apologize.
No, that's okay.
Because you were being nice about it. The state and the county need to get their act together. The mixed messaging coming out of the state and the county is putting school districts in very tough situations. And when it comes to this testing in particular, they've kicked the ball down the road too many times, and they're dropping it. They're dropping it big time. And it's because there's a lack of communication, there's a lack of centralization within the state, the county, and local. And it's time that people start working together and get a head on their shoulders and stop contradicting themselves in the information that they provide to school districts, because it's really putting school districts in a tough place.
I must say, you must have read what I was going to say next, Gunnar, so could you stop reading my notes? Because I was going to say, why remote? Because we're really looking to provide a viable instruction, safety, and state requirements and guidance that's come to me. We got guidance on the 9th of October, the 21st of October, an update on the 31st of October, another one on the 3rd of November, on the 12th of November, and the 14th of November. So I guess to emulate your point, we're constantly changing and trying to get, and it's really hard to get traction of where we're going with that constant change that you just talked about. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Moving forward, I already talked about getting the limited isolency, talked about the parent health. So we're going to be remote until January 4th. That seemed a logical date. Why do I think that's a logical date? Well, Thanksgiving, 2 weeks after Thanksgiving is December 10th. And as we saw with Halloween, and you have Thanksgiving with these holidays, which I hope wasn't a truth, but it did happen, seems to be happening in a lot of places, that's 2 weeks after it, which you'd have to go through quarantines and isolations and everything else. So when you look at December 10th, there's only 8 school days before winter break, and there of those, you'd only be 4 in person because in the model we're using, you're 50% attending school, 50% remote, so that'll be 4 days. If you look at the entire time from now until January 4th, the entire time is 21 days, so basically that would be 10 days of in-person that you're now getting remote. I would much rather have the students here in school, but when you're looking at what's happening, taking care of that three-legged school with safety, state requirements, and viable instruction, the remote, I think, is the most logical situation to go into. And we're moving there because of orange, but also we were there when we were at yellow. We'll evaluate, and if COVID situation changes, we could always come back earlier. I don't personally see that. What we're going to do while we're in remote, let's make sure I have some notes. What we're going to do while we're in remote is we're really looking to change the model, and we're looking to try to come up with something better too, based on the surveys. And for the elementary, and was going out today, I heard some of the messages, they're going to have cohort A in the morning, cohort B in the afternoon. And why we're doing that is so students get direct instruction daily. Granted, this is remote, but for the remote, it'll keep it in small groups, and then that can ladder back in when they go to school. There are 2 other schools in this area that are doing it, so yes, we're stealing some of their ideas. The Wednesdays that's where they would have a whole group where all the kids could get together in the morning, but then the afternoons would be for the teachers. And it's for the teachers to work on all they have to do for all the other days. And yes, they will have some time on the other days too, and I don't think it's enough. I don't think there's anywhere you could give enough, but you're trying to balance viable instruction with amount of planning time. The middle school is going to run its regular schedule on the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and run a shortened schedule on the Wednesday, so therefore they too will also have time in the afternoon. And the high school, I believe they settle, and Dr. Dudek will correct me if I'm wrong, but they settled on a schedule where they're going to do regular schedules, the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and on the Wednesdays in 1 week, they are going to run like 1 through 4, and so the periods could be a little longer. And the next week, they're going to run a 5 through 9, and that would give the afternoons, again, for them open, because they're running the half the day. This was something, they looked at another model with shortened periods, but the teacher said, no, with that length of time, we really want more time with the students, because by the time we start, we're ending. We would like the longer periods and then do that split week. So that's an idea directly from the teachers. Did I get that right? All right, I got a nod, yes, I got that one. Any questions on that? That's really kind of our reopening plan, and then we're going to be meeting during December to see how that is working and how we can bring that into the model we're going to use coming in January. All right, so we're going to switch a little bit. Meals will continue. John's getting that stuff online, so if you do need meals delivered to you, there is that opportunity if you call in. The meals will be picked up Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Where are we picking them up? That one I don't remember. High school.
Yeah, just one location, the high school, for pickups of lunch on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
Yep.
And there's detail on the website, on the announcements, right at the home page. There's a tab for a breakfast lunch program. Click on that, and you'll see all the dates of pickups are available.
So, and we're happy to do that with the support of the state and the federal government. Any questions on the meals? So I'm going to switch gears a little bit, thinking down the road to graduation. Policy 8480. That stipulates there's a requirement for graduation for students to have community hours. Over the 4 years in the high school, they have to get 32 hours. Now, I know there's a lot of creative things that we worked with last year and even can work with this year, but I also know in the COVID environment, all those things might not work for some families. So taking that into account, taking 32 dividing by 4, I get 8. I would really like to modify it. You know, this would be a board action, a board discussion, because if we could modify for 9th and 11th graders to 24 hours, that would take account for this year. Now, granted, there are some 10th and 11th graders current that were also in high school last year, which is why I'd also like to give the principal to make exceptions based on what's happened over the years. And for the seniors this year, I'd like to waive it. I know a lot of them have multiple hours in already. Community service is something you're supposed to do out of the generosity of yourself too. So therefore, I'd like to have this is where I'm kind of opening it up to the board to hear your opinion on that. Do you think I'm going down the right path, or would you look for something else? Because ultimately, you would have to vote on it because it's a policy. I'll take the silence as 100% support. Got a thumbs up, all right. So we're going to be modifying that policy. Also, I might put it forward. If we can get it ready for December, we will. And we'll probably just do a single reading of it, if that's okay, and do an immediate approval, because nothing else would be changing. Is that okay, too? Thumbs up is good? All right. Sounds good. I'm going to move on now. Sports. While we're in this zone, I already heard sports. They're not going to look for any starting date for sports till December 14th, I think it is. But if we're not in session, if we're 100% remote, I can't in good conscience say we're going to be doing sports here. I apologize for that to the athletes because I really know you enjoy it. I would love to get you out there. I'm going to keep brainstorming on it and see where we go, but I know the first hurdle for anything, for having students doing anything when we're in any zone, is getting that LSL license and getting the test kits in here. So that is going to be, number one on priority. Also thinking of sports, let's see, girls field hockey, girls soccer, boys soccer all qualified for sectionals. Girls swim team round out their season competing in the virtual ECIC championship. Boys and girls cross country runners traveled to Bemis Point over the weekend. Now, granted, this is a Monday the 16th email, so I'm a little behind on this. Our top female runner, Nicole, finished 4th overall, helping her team to a 3rd place finish. And our top boy runner, Evan, finished 4th overall, helping his team to a 2nd place. ECIC athletic directors are scheduled to meet on the 19th to discuss the rollout for the winter, which I already just talked about, how that's being put off.
Can I interrupt for a second? I know that we won't be voting or on it until December. Is there a way to let, other than this meeting, to let students know and families know a little bit we're going to be, voting on it? I'm just thinking that, are there families right now scrambling, trying to do community service, that just a heads up that we're looking at modifying that? Because I think that we could take a little pressure off people if they knew that was going to be voted on.
I will get that out in my Monday message.
Okay.
I was really wondering what I would say. No, I'm just
Well,
teasing.
it just seems like I can see people saying, we got to do it now before things get worse. We got to do it now.
It's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that, so I really appreciate that statement because I hadn't thought about sending it out in the message, but I'm writing it down now. Modify the community service, and I will have that out in that message Monday to everyone. And then I also tell Dr. Ramirez, Dean, over in the high school, the principal, because I know he does a Friday message, so I'm sure that he can get that out too, so they'll hear it twice, because sometimes he might not hear it the first time, depending on what's going on in the house. I want to make sure I put this at a spot so I see it. Okay, Nick Naparella, who is an art teacher for our elementaries, been awarded the 2020 Region Art Educator of the Year Award for Region 1, and he is going to be honored Sunday, November 22nd, during the This is Arts 2020 virtual conference. great congratulations to him. I mean, I've seen his work and I admire it. I actually want to go back to kindergarten so I can spend 5 years with him of learning how to draw a lot better than I do now. And when I say draw, that's really a mischaracterization because he does phenomenal things where he takes a book and he relates the story in the book to the art piece they're doing. And the art could be from drawing to 3D art to other more creative things that are just inspirational to start the kids off with that part of the visual art. So congratulations. That's it. That's what I have. I'm all done. And I will turn it back over to you, Sharon. Never got to raise the roof before, but all right.
All right, moving on to new business. Item 8.1, the superintendent recommends the adoption of the amended policy 1511, the agenda format.
So moved, Gunner.
Second, Dave.
Discussion?
So I do have something that I'd like to share. So I'm going to ask Mike, I'm going to apologize in advance to my colleagues on the board and just ask them to bear with me for a few minutes. As I share a personal story with you, and I wrote it down just so I wouldn't forget anything, that I've been hesitant to share publicly for 4 years. I'm going to ask Cindy to make sure that some of these thoughts are reflected in the official minutes of the meeting. So here we go. It was a brisk fall morning, and I just finished with a class at the University at Buffalo, and my cell phone rang. I recognized the number, and naturally I picked up the phone. The conversation started out well, and then quickly the tone changed, and I was not prepared for it. In my view, the conversation never turned disrespectful, but this individual had power for a notable amount of time, and I grew silent, only responding, yes, sir, no, sir, I understand, sir. These responses becoming more stern as I felt my level of frustration grow. There came a moment where the individual said, "You are no longer the voice for the students, you are a voice for the board." And now, while that individual was semi-true in that sentiment that was conveyed to me, I was no longer a student, I was a board member, an elected official, and yes, my actions and words were being closely followed. There was another fact that was true as well. I was 19 years old, 18 when I was elected, the youngest individual to ever hold an elected position within our entire history of our district. And many with power and influence did not know how to react or adapt to that situation. It was no secret that I campaigned on the importance of student voice, having a seat at the table where decisions are made and advocating for the student experience. My stances were clear, open, and honest, and the community provided a mandate when they casted their vote that year. For the past 4 years, this moment, this phone call, this conversation has stuck with me. It was the first time in this position where I was faced with the uncomfortable truth that young people face every day when confronting power. Be silent, do what you're told, and fall into place. Thankfully, I had educators throughout my life who stressed the importance of not only getting involved, but being involved. Parents whom had numerous conversations with me about understanding the impact that your voice can have, and a support system that believed no dream was ever too big to dream. After reflection on this conversation, I had to make a decision in the moment. Do I fall into place and do what I was told? Or do I keep my promise, follow my ideals, and follow through on all the conversations I had with my peers, where I told them they would now have a voice at that table? For me, the decision was clear, though not easily executed. From that moment, I would never stop advocating for the young people who were affected by the decisions that we make as a board. Although the strategy changed and was no longer as blunt, I did not stop trying to find ways to talk to students directly, to hear their voice, and to understand their perspective. I had to be tactful, frame conversations differently, and act with purposeful caution. Because that is an unfortunate truth when confronting power for young people, when trying to infiltrate the systemic barriers that have existed for centuries. It has taken 4 years to get to this point. I want to be clear that I'm not sharing this now to say, hey, look at me. I'm sharing this now to inform young people in this district that from kindergarten to 12th grade that yes, although I'm 23 now, ever since day one, I've never stopped thinking about your voice. And after today's vote, I hope and I believe that your voice will have a permanent seat at this table. However, let me caution you too, it is now up to you to use it, and more importantly, not lose it. There will come a time, and it could be in the near future or many years from now, where those with power will try to silence you. And let my message be clear to you this evening. There is too much at risk to be silent. I'm a product of this district, and for what it is worth, I was taught and now strongly believe the importance of giving young people with lived experience a seat at the table. Heck, it is their education. Their future is at stake. And looking back at the significance of this moment, it was important to recognize that the past 4 years since that phone conversation, that conversation has never left my mind. But I don't let it control me, I let it motivate me. And today, 4 years later, we are solidifying in our district policy the fact that young people have an invitation to speak at our table. I applaud my colleagues for having the courage to open our conversations to them. However, I caution this board and boards of the future to not only listen to our young people that we educate, but to actually hear what they say, learn from them by asking questions, and please, I plead to you not to censor them. To the young people of this community, no matter who you are, where you come from, or what your circumstance is, you have a seat. Share your experiences, the good, the bad, the strengths, and the limitations to your education. School is not easy. You and I both know that. I think we all know that. But things won't move forward. We will not see progress if those in power do not hear from you. In this moment, I am proud. I'm proud for what this means for our district and the message that it sends to not only our students, but the young people in this community. And for these reasons and more, I'm really excited to cast my vote today in favor of this amended agenda policy. Thank you all for letting me share that this evening.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And I can say it has been an honor and a privilege to serve with you on the board. With that, can we have all those in favor of 8.1, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. The motion passes. Item.
Sorry, can I comment? Did we
Yeah.
comment? I know we commented, but thank you, Gunnar. And I'm super excited for the new agenda. Cannot wait. Thank you for doing all of that with the agenda committee, Dave, Gunnar, Sharon, Doug. Appreciate it.
Item 8.
Really got to thank Cindy too, because, all her experience and everything of putting it together, and I'm so glad she's here to help get it implemented starting December.
Me too.
And Dave for attending all the board meetings in other places and giving us all the feedback on those too. I appreciate that. Item 8.2, the superintendent recommends the first reading of the following policies: 1512, broadcasting recording of board meetings; 6550, leaves of absence; 8241, patriotism, citizenship, and human rights education; and 6570, remote working.
So move.
Second, Louise.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Sorry,
Aye.
I have one question about the policy about recording. There's a couple of like tape recording specific. It says tape recording. Maybe just remove tape. I think there's like one or two that were missed.
Just looking at the wording of it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's all.
All
You're
right.
not gonna watch it on your VCR?
If we got a tape recorder.
We would,
Okay.
we would fail right away when we can't find those tapes.
Oh my god. All I can picture is like a pencil, like in a cassette tape, like trying to like rewind it. So old. Gunnar doesn't even know what a cassette tape is.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Item 8.3, the superintendent recommends the approval of the following resolution. Resolved that the audit committee has met with the external auditors, read and reviewed the contents of the 2019-2020 audit report and all supplemental materials, and recommends audit reports to be approved by the Board of Education.
So move, Dave.
Second, Louise.
Sorry, my battery's running low. Discussion?
So the Bonadillo and Company was a new auditor for us. They responded to our request for proposal process that we did. So it's their first year in the district, and they did a great job kind of catching up. It's very difficult, I'm sure, to come into a district without the history. So they had to, look at past audits and bring themselves up to speed on what we do here. You'll see there's a management letter. There's a communication they call it communication of matters relating to the audit. In there were no findings or what you'd call deficiencies, which would need immediate response and corrective action to. They did have 5 what they call other matters, which are comments and suggestions that they made to us, and the audit committee reviewed those. We're responding to all 5 of those items. We're not sure if the state needs an official response to those. That's a kind of a debate that we're having with the state, because they are kind of changing course and saying that if there's a recommendation or a comment that they want a response on it. So that's not something we used to do in the past, but we're working through that. A unique item in this audit, at the end of the year, we finished with what we call a deferred revenue on state aid. That was that 20% holdback that they were talking about doing. Some of our payments were held back 20%, so we ended with $212,000 of what we are calling deferred revenue. We're hoping to still get that. We assume that 20% holdback is going to be something that we get someday, but that we ended the year with that, just so you know, the 1920 school year with that open item. That's about
And
it.
I'd just like to say thank you to John for bringing in a new audit group. I think it's important maybe to even just have new eyes look at our numbers and our books. So I appreciate that John reached out, and they seem to be a really great organization to work with, and it was a good move. So thank you.
Thank you.
I agree with that too. It's always nice to have a fresh set of eyes looking at something.
Mm-hmm.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Okay, item 8.4, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education accept the following donations. $600 from the Alma Primary PTO to Alma Primary, $1,000 from the Independent Health Foundation for the Play 60 Challenge from Marilla Primary, $600 from the Independent Health Foundation for the Play 60 Challenge for Wales Primary, $50 from the Reverend Patricia Gwynn, I hope I'm saying that right, for the Carolyn Gwynn Scheidemann Scholarship Fund, and $250 from Mr. Douglas Higgins and Ms. Candace Clemens for the Chuck Funky Athletic Fund.
So moved, Gunnar.
Second,
Second,
Dave.
Louise.
Discussion? We always just want to say thank you for these generous donations to everybody. We really appreciate them. It really is exceptional that every month we're approving all of these donations. It's really greatly appreciated. So all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item 8.5, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the transfer of $15,943.75 from the ICS Trust and Agency account to the Danny's Helping Hands account. The organization has been reclassified as a 501c3 and will now operate independently from the district.
So moved, Dave.
Second, Louise. Second, Louise.
Discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you to Danny's Helping Hands for all of the work they do in the district. And I would like to clarify, are they still going to have space in the building at the middle school?
Yeah, there's still.
I know there's a lot.
Sorry. Yes, definitely.
Go ahead.
They're still going to have space. I was actually talking with Colleen Edwards, who takes care of this. They're also working out of a church right now too, just because with COVID and not having people come in. But her and I spent maybe half an hour a month or two ago talking about the space there. In fact, if you were going to the room now, there's still items in there because not everything would fit at the church. And I think it's important for the community to know it is still viable. It's still running. It just was able to get this 501c3. So therefore they have a board and they're working on just how they get things out, just because they're growing, they're expanding into some other communities. But for Iroquois, from what she was saying, is still their primary number one, and it's great. And for Thanksgiving and for Christmas, they'll be doing different activities. In fact, we were talking 2 weeks ago about how they would be able to hand out items to have people pick up, and so I think she has some great ideas for how to do that. And I'm glad with us going orange that they do have this church outlet to give people items.
Oh, that's a good question, actually. Will they be allowed to, cause I know that they have a lot of clothing at the school.
They've moved most of it to the church because already with COVID and not wanting adults in, so that will work so much better. We got lucky on this one, so we should go buy a lottery ticket tonight.
Yeah.
Because it would be an unfortunate situation to have to move it all now, and they've really done a great job of still being able and viable and doing that. And I know, different people, they will call, like from the high school, and they will take children down there, like Officer DePlato will help and take children down there. So if we know what they want, we can get it and bring it to them. But if they need to try on different sizes and stuff, that we will take them down there to the church.
Oh. Okay. Interesting. Well, anyway, it's awesome, and it's a phenomenal charity. And now that it's official, it's tax write-off. So please support the community and the district.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item 8.6, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education declare items from the Buildings and Grounds Department obsolete and disposed of according to district policy.
So moved, Dave.
Second, Gunner.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item 8.7, the superintendent recommends the award of the construction manager services to Campus Construction Management Group in the amount of $1,025,000.
So moved, Dave.
Second, Louise.
Discussion. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Item 8.8, the superintendent recommends to approve the corrective action plan for the 2018-2019 internal control audit.
So moved, Michelle.
Second, Dave.
Discussion.
So when I talked about recommendations needing corrective action by the state, this is one that I argued back and forth with them about the 18-19 internal control audit, that there were recommendations that were made. Obviously, I lost that argument because we're doing the corrective action plan here. Some of the recommendations even start with saying, consider doing this. But apparently the state is saying that even with that kind of comment, that they want us to do what they call a corrective action, a formal corrective action, and address that comment. So that's what I did with this report.
Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 8.9, the superintendent recommends the board approve the preliminary Smart Schools investment plan.
So moved.
Second, Louise.
Discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, item 8.10, the superintendent recommends the approval of the following. The Board of Education of the Iroquois Central School District authorizing the district to undertake a 2020 capital improvement project consisting of the reconstruction and renovation of and the construction of improvements and upgrades to various district buildings and facilities, including certain athletic facilities at an estimated maximum cost of $19,509,249. This resolution is effective immediately and shall be placed in the official minutes of the board as an official action of the board. Somebody?
So moved, Louise.
Second, Gunner.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. And that moves us to board discussion. And we have on the agenda discussion. Michelle and I were able to meet with our strategic planning group, and also with Doug, and I'm forgetting who else was there. Cindy was there. I'm forgetting who else was there.
Well, I want to say,
Mary Jo.
Mary Jo and Cindy were probably there
That's right.
more than
Yeah.
I was, because that happened to be when there were a couple cases of COVID that I was getting
Yeah.
a notice out to the parents.
Sorry, Mary Jo, I knew I was forgetting somebody. It was a very productive meeting. We really had a great discussion regarding what we had talked about at the last board meeting, which was the need to move forward with our strategic planning, but also to be respectful and aware of the times that we're living in and the increased demands on people's time in their family lives and their jobs, including our educators that we've been talking about our feeling that pressure already. So how do we put those two things together? And I think that we came up with a pretty good, some compromises on what the commitment would be, the length of time, how we would space that time out. And we came up with a timeline for when our core group will meet, with the idea, and I'll let Michelle talk about this in a second more because she's more involved in writing the letter. But laying out what the commitment of time was for our core group for the strategic planning, as well as then going from there into the kind of focus groups that'll meet. And we actually were able to put down dates and times and what that commitment would be. So we mapped that out for the whole series of meetings for the strategic planning that will take place starting at the end of January. I guess a kind of an overview. What we're looking to do is to get that letter out to the community from trying to get more interest in people to be on that core group. Looking to try to finalize that group in December, beginning meeting in January. Correct me if is it every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks? The meetings every 3 weeks. Every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, that group will meet remotely, and so we are inviting and encouraging people to apply to be a part of that group, and that will go through May. I believe was the last meeting. With an eye that work will be done, and that will be good timing for our summer board retreat, also the district retreat. So I felt like it was a very productive meeting. It was good to get those dates down, good to get those things finalized. Michelle, do you want to say something? Anything about it?
I think you covered a lot of it. It was good to have a plan and to put some dates in place. And we are inviting the community. And I know that a couple people have submitted their names, which we have taken note of. Thank you. And then we're asking people to either mail or email Mrs. Sadowski, the district clerk, and her email is on the Iroquois website. It is a bit of a time commitment, but basically we'd like to meet every 2 weeks via Zoom, so we're not asking anyone to be in person, from 6 to 8 p.m. And we're going to go over the goals of the district, the mission of the district, making sure that where we're heading for the next 5 years is the right direction for the community, for the students, for the faculty and staff. And just kind of get a really great buy-in from different stakeholders in the community, business owners and community activists and, you know, faculty and staff and parents and students. So anyway, anyone who has interest, please, the letter is on the website, I believe. If not, you can email the board, you can email Mrs. Sadowski, we will get you the information. And then we're also going to go over and break down into smaller groups. For example, maybe like a committee to talk about, I don't know, what the next strategic, the next capital project might look like, or I don't know. There are so many different categories. I can't think of any of them. So if you can't commit to 2 hours a week every 2 weeks, totally understand. It's a lot to ask. But there will be other opportunities to participate. So please just submit your name so that we have a list of people. Thank you.
Can we get that, I know that letter is there. Can we get that onto the Facebook page too for the district so that people, after the meeting, so people see it, maybe while it's fresh in their mind? That would be good.
I just had a quick question of like when people, maybe I missed it, Sharon, when you were talking earlier, but when people needed to submit their interest by.
I would say as soon as possible. We are looking to meet as a group. I don't know if we had an exact date on that.
We do. I think we're starting in January.
Right. I don't think we had a letter for when we need it by, but we, depending on what the interest, we want to meet in December and go through the groups that we have and see what the representation is there and the interest is there. So that we can kind of finalize that group. So I don't want to arbitrarily pick a date, but really, I would say in the next 2 weeks, because we have really tried to encourage people to express their interest prior to this. So this is sort of our last, I don't want to say last opportunity, but our last, request and just reminder for people. I don't know. Do we want to pick a date? Do you think that would probably be helpful if we had a date for people?
Oh, for a deadline?
Yeah.
I mean,
What are we now?
calendar.
That's one. Yep. I mean, really, if we.
Like December 11th, maybe? That's 3.5 weeks. Is that too long?
No. No, I think that's good. I think that gives people an opportunity and.
And, we are planning on reaching out to some community groups that maybe don't necessarily attend the board meetings. And we really want to have a diverse representative group from all of our Iroquois has how many towns in the district? 8 or something? 7? I mean, we say Elmo, Merle, and Wales, but there are, Bennington and...
Yeah, I was saying them, Bennington, Orchard Park.
Lancaster.
So there's little East Aurora.
Yeah. That's 8, I think. So anyway, we will send a letter to community groups too, just to, in like Kiwanis and Chamber of Commerce and things like that, just to try and get as many people informed that we're doing this as possible. And we're going to try and encourage participation.
Yeah, so 2 other suggestions, and I'm sure they're probably already being done, is just making sure that all of the PTOs, especially the primary PTOs, are given this information. And then also, it probably wouldn't hurt to try submitting. I don't know the rules for letters to the other and how many words, but even if it might be a perfect word amount, I don't know, but submitting it to the local papers as a letter to the editor, I think could.
That's a great idea.
The different audience that we might not normally reach. And then this probably should be saved for a different meeting. I don't think we do a mid-year district newsletter, correct, Cindy? No? Okay. I was thinking maybe down the line, once this thing's up and going, and we're looking for and we know what those subtopics are going to be, maybe before the budget newsletter, putting out a newsletter that sort of explains the strategic plan and also showcases the work that our teachers are doing and students are doing during this time, because those members of the community that might not have children going through this remote learning may have a different perception of what education looks like during this time. And I just I'm trying to think proactive to budget season, making sure people understand that schools are still open, they're still operating, functioning in that sense. So it wouldn't hurt to give like a mid-year update type thing this year.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and the time frame actually for the strategic plan is right around budget season to have it completed and submitted to the board. So it's going to be a pretty intense process with a lot of involvement from the community, which I think is going to be really beneficial.
I think intense, but not intimidating. And we talked a lot about I don't want to be so scared.
Yes, yeah, I know.
We talked a lot with PLC about how to make it the best environment for people to come, to share their thoughts. We want the variety, of opinions. That's what will make it productive. And they have some, good plans. We did talk about whether at this point, if we're Orange, it doesn't matter, but in-person, remote. We really felt like, starting remotely, really we can create that environment, maybe breakout groups, have people really invested and openly sharing. So I think that it'll be a neat process to be a part of for people. They don't have to have any experience in anything like this. They just, just all members of our community. We want to hear what people have to say. So I'm looking forward to it.
Really, just show up and be truthful and listen to other people and be collaborative.
Yep. There's anything else for board discussion that we want to talk about? All right. Then we will move on to news worth sharing.
2 quick updates from Alma Primary. The first is I attended their faculty meeting virtually on October 22nd. They were really appreciative of the Dollar General grant for literacy, and the teachers were starting to brainstorm ideas on how to use those additional funds. And then also at that point, they were talking about keeping Halloween traditions going, and I know now that they executed a socially distanced trick-or-treating throughout the building for both cohorts. So thank you to the PTO at Alma Primary and all the teachers for making that happen for the kids. A lot of fun. And then the second thing I wanted to share from Elma is I wanted to thank the 3rd and 4th grade teams of teachers. I shared with them at the faculty meeting that I'm here in Washington, D.C., getting my master's and have access to a lot of cool things like monuments and museums. And at that point, the election was coming up. And so we did a virtual tour with their classes of Washington, D.C. while we read a book about voting called I Voted. So just want to thank those teachers for reaching out, and it was a lot of fun to put together.
I participated in the NISBA delegate voting on the resolutions. That was really interesting and really long via Zoom. And we actually, in order to have a quorum, there needed to be 200 participants on the Zoom call. And about 30 seconds before we were completed, we lost the quorum. So it was fine. It was like the last resolution. So it was good. But anyway, it was interesting to be part of putting together what the legislative agenda is going to be for the School Board Association, to be advocating for the new New York State legislators, and they will be providing the talking points to school board members. And then there was a legislative breakfast on the 14th, thanks to Dave and the Erie County Association of School Boards. That I think Doug was there too, which was very, very interesting. We got to meet some of our newly elected representatives, and one is a teacher, and one is actually several were like really receptive to education. So that was really encouraging. And there's one other thing.
The forum, I think you were also at the forum with Dave Little, where he talked about where it was going.
Yeah.
Where we're going.
That wasn't quite as uplifting.
Yeah.
It was interesting, though.
Yeah.
A lot of things to think about. It was just a lot of information that was presented. And then in Erie County School Boards, we have on December 3rd, we have the speed boarding, which we will have the Niagara Frontier Industry Education Council. We'll have John W. Danforth, Dean Stanfield from Solar Liberty, who's going to be working on our solar project as well, will be presenting. CNS companies, and then someone from Erie 1 is doing a program on cybersecurity, and they actually did the same or a similar program down at Chautauqua County School Boards earlier in September, and it was very, very interesting. So if you have time, we're probably going to go virtual with that program, and so there will be a time frame, so you'll be able to kind of come and go as you please and see the different speakers. So it's going to be a very, I think, good workshop. We've had about 50 to 55 people at both of the programs that we had, the Albany Update with Dave Little and the Legislative Breakfast. So we're now kind of working virtually.
Anybody else have any other news worth sharing?
There is some news worth sharing. You probably saw this in the paper, and I thought it was kind of noteworthy. It was in the Buffalo News on Saturday, November 11th, that the incoming First Lady, Jill Biden, is a community college professor and member of the National Education Association, the nation's largest teachers union. The Biden administration has promised to drastically increase resources for public schools. So I just wanted to point that out, that sounds very promising to see in the newspaper.
Agreed, Louise.
Okay, do we have any recognition of guests?
No, we do not.
And we don't need another executive session? Is there an executive? No. Okay. So then I would like a motion to adjourn our meeting tonight.
So moved.
Second, Louise.
Discussion?
No.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, then we'll be adjourning our meeting. Thank you, everybody, for
And
Joining
thank
us
you to
tonight.
everyone in the public that watched tonight and to all those who are going to watch the recording. I hope you enjoy yourself tomorrow.
Everybody.
Bye.